On this episode of the Coach's Clinic podcast, we're back. We're catching up. Mike's back from spring training, basically. We're catching up on, youth sports, putting together the puzzles, just a lot of different cool topics today, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's fun to just try to reflect, and it's interesting as coaches. We all have these little stumbling blocks along the way, and trying to work with kids and adults and pro athletes and everything else, and just trying to put that puzzle together. It's kind of cool.
Sure way.
Yeah, it was great to hear Coach Deegan talk about what that next level looks like, what it looks like in a professional organization, and how he can take those certain aspects back and make his program better because of it.
You got some dad schooling today, too.
Yeah.
Thus.
I think it's always interesting to see how much, being a dad and being a coach really overlaps just in the concepts, not just if you're a dad and a coach, but even if you're one or the other, the concepts are really similar and can be applied in both ways. And I think you're going to learn a lot about both subjects on this one.
Absolutely. And I would argue that being a dad is the ultimate coach.
The ultimate coach.
All right, let's go to the show. Coach's Clinic podcast. We are back. Our coaching staff, Coach Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, and Dustin Myers. Brought to you by MaxEverMuscle.com. Man, we were off for about a month. Coach was down at the Jays, which is pretty sick.
Doing some observation, yeah.
Treadway was getting thrown out of another soccer game, which is amazing.
I see a pattern here.
Yeah. Me and Dustin is just out here grinding some weights, but we're glad to be back on the mics.
How you been, fellas? You been good?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I miss doing it. I mean, I miss being on the mic. Like, for me, because these topics are so usually different than what I'm doing on my other shows, like, I was like, when's Mike coming back?
Yeah.
When's Mike coming back?
It's like I'm on vacation in your neighborhood, right? And the wiffle ball game got taken away for a little while.
Yeah. It's exactly right. So what's going on with you, D?
Oh, nothing really. I mean, from a coaching standpoint, this is kind of like my funnest time of the year because there's not a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? It's the off season for wrestling. So the high school kids and even my college guys, really, they can just, train to get strong right now, have fun in the weight room. There's no competitions coming up, so we don't got to worry about weight cuts and stuff like that. Even Matt, is kind of in between fights right now. So this is kind of like the funnest time for me as a coach. And it coincides with summer, so that's
and the kids look like they're having fun too. They're pushing each other. They're moving a bunch of iron. They're just their swag out there is looking good right now.
They're doing TikTok dances in between in between pulling huge weights. So normally, like, I think people see that in the weight room and they think like, oh, it's a distraction or the guys are dicking off. But like some of my guys that are like doing these dances and stuff, they're the hardest workers in there. So I'm like, I'm not gonna like tamp down like their spirit or what they're doing. So
you said something real quick, Coach, that you said like they should be able to act all the way like themselves. That's part of why we didn't want parents hanging around. Like that they should be able to just be that way because then you're going to get more out of them. And I think that's a huge point, D.
Yeah, I agree. You figure, especially, up until you're 18 and maybe even longer than that, depending on what career you go into or whatever, we're always, I think, kind of our inner child or who we are as a person gets stifled a lot. You have expectations that are put on you by whether it's your school, your coaches, whatever, you have to act a certain way. Whereas I want the kids, within reason, to act like themselves when they're here. That's why I always tell parents right out of the gate, like, I'm not going to discipline your kid for saying cuss words. Yeah. Now, it's different if they're being derogatory towards a teammate or whatever, but I want them to dance. I want them to have fun. I want them to act like themselves. And I think I get the most out of them when they can operate in that type of environment. And you can't really do that with, mom or dad, especially dad, sitting over their shoulder right there watching everything they do and critiquing their lifting or their training or whatever.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot, especially from your guys and my guys. And I think that when they have an environment like that, that they can really you can get the most out of them. So I think that's a huge thing that you've watered over the years and kind of let happen here, which is cool. Go ahead, Mike.
No, cool. So I have a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here in a second. Yeah. And then a comment. I just heard this recently, but people, everyone's wondering why kids love video games. Like, oh, they go nuts about that. Like, they love their video games, but don't like to do stuff. Well, it reminded me of that story. And to think differently about it, one guy said, when you watch a kid play a video game, they're free flowing. Like they're having a blast. Like a lot of times, with their headphones on, they're with their buddies. They're chopping it up. Like there's no parents around. Like it's a lot more free. And that's how youth sports used to be, right? Like used to be a lot of kind of on your own doing your thing. And now it's really been interjected by parents. And what do you see at a lot of those games? Kids are tight. They're nervous. They're not talking. But watching them play video games or flying around. That reminded me of the environment you've created. I'm not saying it's a video game, but like it's just go be yourself. Like, I'm not really going to sit here and overcoach you. I'm not going to I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to create an environment. But anyways, I thought that was interesting because people get so mad. Adults get so mad about the video games. But actually, maybe they're telling us a little bit of a story. So anyways, I wanted to say that. But
my takeaway from that would be that we need to create more environments outside of the virtual ones where they can be themselves.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about maybe that's how sports used to be. I don't think my dad actually played baseball growing up, like for a team, but he played baseball his whole life in Empire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like on Sundays they would get together and play pickup games or whatever. So I think he always played baseball without actually playing baseball because he ran track in the spring. So I think like that is probably missing from a lot of kids' lives, where they can just go out and operate as who they are as a person around other kids, around their peers. And it's a shame that now maybe most of the avenues for that are virtual.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
I was watching last night. Annan was at football practice, and they're just like on conditioning stuff. They don't got pads on or anything yet. And he wanted to make sure he went early, which I thought was good. But it's because they play pickup ball before, which is lost in the neighborhoods. And so I watched them. I got there. Practice started 6:30. I got there like 6:10. There's probably 20 kids just playing. Hey, you walk it back, like literally playing like we grew up. And then they're looser going into the actual drills.
Yeah.
And I thought I don't know if they planned that or if this is just happening, but either way, like I was watching and thinking like, this is awesome.
Absolutely.
And they don't even realize how awesome
you go
it is.
you go to like a youth travel tournament and you'll see a bunch of tense parents, a bunch of tense players, a bunch of tense kids. But then what's beautiful is like look around the corner and there's like some little field that's not being used. And they're playing wiffle ball and like actually having fun over there.
Or all the little brothers and sisters over there
like
playing.
That's where the fun's occurring. You know what I mean? Like that, and that's where like if you listen, they're actually talking about the game, like moving people around. But when they're playing, it's so tense. But it's usually because it's so adult driven. But that's great to hear.
I wonder why it's like that now so bad. Parents are just interjecting more than they used to. There used to be like maybe one guy on every team, but it seems like there's more than one nowadays. The percentages have increased.
I think part of it too is, social media driven. So even at like kids young age, it maybe even not even the kids, the parents feel like they have to post about junior's game every time or whatever. Yeah. I don't know.
I messed up, so I can't do that anymore because when Anna was in 4th grade, I posted a couple of his stuff and like they prepared for him. Like,
yeah.
Legitly, like we went up to Licking Valley or whatever, and they were prepared for him.
You let them scout him.
Yes,
they got tape on him.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was like, I'm not posting no more breakaways till after. Like anyway, isn't that funny? They shut him down because one of the coaches was like watched whatever.
Your films. Okay, cool.
Hey,
Unbelievable.
So let's talk about Andon a little bit. He's going to play football again this year, right?
Yeah. That's as of now. Like he was definitely like just straight up. Like I mean, he broke his collarbone last year. He got smashed by a huge ass kid. It's the only time I never saw him pop back up. He's a tough little guy, and he was definitely nervous about it. And like our dialogue around it was that he didn't want to play, and then we kind of just like signed him up and we're like, all right, dude, we're just going to take you for the early parts. And if he really gets the point, because after he got hurt, when he was laying there last year, I was like, all right, if he doesn't want to play, then I'm not going to make him. And I know you had this thing with Joe a little bit too, right, with baseball. And then here's the difference in it. He loves the game, like more than anything.
Yeah.
That's all he wants to play. That's all he's playing on video games. That's all they're talking about. So if he disliked football, then I would probably say, all right, dude, like I wouldn't feel like I'm pushing him, but he absolutely loves it.
Right.
And I see it when I took him yesterday, like how excited he is. Spraying, like I don't even think he drank his water. He's spraying it all over his friends when he's running by. Like he's just having fun and he's really good at it. So it's like, we're going to test it out. And we tried to make not like a big deal out of it. I think that was the other thing is like we kept talking about it. I asked Ray's like, I just signed him up. We'll just take him and we'll see how he goes. And if he really is uncomfortable and scared or whatever. And it's like weird because I mean, I don't think he's scared because he doesn't play scared. But I mean, after that last thing, it's understandable. And there's a lot of kids that don't play till 7th or 8th grade and they're just fine, or even later than that. So if that was the case, he had to take a year off or whatever, I was cool with it. But I tried to explain to him that now he's a 6th grader. He's on the bigger side. Next year, it's only 7th grade. Then it's only 8th grade. It's that 3rd grade year.
That's tough.
In that 5th grade year because you're way smaller.
And he's young too, right?
Yeah, he's a little bit young for his age, but not like he's like in the middle.
Okay.
But the reality is that it's just that you get hammered on those years bad.
Oh yeah.
And he just, even though he played well last year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as of now, I think it's actually, I'm happy that we made that decision so far, and we'll see how it goes. He's bigger and stronger than he was last year and faster, so he should be nasty.
Well, I think the key takeaway for dads there to listen is that even though he has talent and he's good at it, if all of a sudden he didn't want to play, you're kind of pushing him to play a little bit. But if all of a sudden now he really doesn't feel like he wants to be there, you're not going to make him at that point.
No. I really think that his passion for football, he tried to act like it was for baseball. Or I'm like, Annan, every ounce of football that is in this kid. So it's like, that was the one of the things I couldn't deny. Because I had a talk with another dad I know. His son's a little bit older, and his son does not like football, but he's okay at it, but not great. And he's like, I don't know whether I should make him play or not. And I'm like, well, he's way better at these other sports. And it's like, are you making him play football because you like football, or you just want him to tough it out? So I think, and that's what I was explaining to him. I'm like, if Annan didn't like it, I'd be way more bullish of like saying, I'm not going to, not going to kind of force it. But when you dealt with that with Joey, what was that kind of talk like?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, my big takeaway in general is having, and it sounds crazy because just sports and kids, but we all go a little crazy with it. It's having some kind of support system or a board of directors who you really trust that you can confide in and ask them questions, because and one being your spouse, I mean, because I think they can provide a little bit of perspective, because sometimes, your heart gets in it. Like, I mean, the dream world, it would be that my dream world would be that my son loves baseball. And why? Not because it's baseball, because I can give him some things. I can give him some access to things that I can't in other areas, right? Like,
it's true.
What I have right now would be my dream if I were a kid, like what I could provide. But it's not my son's dream. You know what I mean?
That's the hard part. Yeah.
So it's tough though, right? Because I'm like, hey, what, you want to go watch batting practice on a field? I could get that for you. But like those are things I can provide for him. But he doesn't really care, right? Like he's cool either way, right? So I think having some people to talk you off the ledge a little bit, and for my wife to be able to say, hey, like, let's just let him make the choice. And I think in your heart whether it's if it's something that needs a kick, or if it's just your ego getting involved and you trying to live a little vicariously through them, right? Like I would love for my son to play high school basketball, but I don't know if he's going to go out for the junior high team this year. He wants to play rec. Yeah. Hey, that's his call, right? Because if not, here's what happens. Then here's my biggest concern as a parent. I don't want to get this adversarial relationship that lasts too long, right? I mean, he's 12 years old. Like I hope we can have a relationship a lot longer than this. Even, I know, Dustin, I love what you say about training. Like, I don't care. I want him to train with me. Like, I hope someday, like, we can at least do that together. We can exercise, and I don't want to ruin a relationship off of me pushing him, and then he goes and plays, and then he doesn't play hard, and then I'm mad at him, and I don't talk to him.
It's just a bad cycle.
And it sounds childish, but I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, it's the reality of it.
I'd say it happens more than a lot. Like, I think it happens all the time.
Yeah.
But I agree with that, because when I bring it up, I don't want it to be a negative thing.
That's right.
I want it to be a positive thing. Right. So that makes a ton of sense. It is tricky, because you want to make sure that you're pushing your kid enough.
Yes.
And not being soft on them, but not overbearing. Well, Rachel's really the one that made the call. I was actually leaning more towards not making him play. And she was like,
sign him up.
She goes, sign him up. Let's not make a big deal out of it. And she said, football's inside of him, Corey. I go, I know, that's what I think. I mean, it's just what it is. Ever since we played pickup games during Turkey Bowl, or he's just always been a shifty guy. So now whether he matures to be a high school player, who knows? But right now, so anyway, that's tough though. Treadway, we're talking a lot of dad stuff. What do you got? What do you got to say?
I can't contribute to that. Growing up with my dad, he was like a football player, but he never really pushed me to do it. He always, we'd throw the ball in the yard, whatever, but I was never very big in high school. So I was like, well, I don't want to play, so I'm going to go play soccer.
Yeah.
And he was like,
you played the opposite of football. Well, you played a different football.
Yeah. Which, like, he was always very supportive of. Like, probably in the back of his head, like, he wanted me to play football. Like, he played football. He had 2 older brothers that played football. His dad played football. Like, it was like a football family. And then I played soccer, and he's kind of just like, whatever. But, he always embraced it and was always very supportive of that.
That's cool. So you never felt anything like static-wise?
No, not at all. I mean, he would, like, try to make me work out and stuff, and I didn't want to do that. So then I was kind of, like, would battle him there. And, like, he was always very, like, tough on me. Like, he didn't care. I played soccer in baseball, and he would like. I remember one time specifically, I forgot my glove, and he didn't talk to me the whole car ride home. But it was just like, it was that lesson. Like, he was like disappointed in me because he had to like basically look out for me and bring me my glove at the game. And he's like, dude, you're 16. How does this happen? But like,
so you're AG then, because I had to do this.
Yeah. Well, because like, when you're 16, like you're not thinking about sports. Like, I'm sure like. And it's probably a little different, but, like, he's not thinking about football the way that you're thinking about football.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't think about it like, oh, in 5 years, what is this going to do? He's like, just thinking, like, am I having fun right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whenever Rome was helping AG, which is Mike's pitching coach, AG forgot his glove, and I had to bring it. So we walk up to the facility, and I'm like, where's your glove at? He looked at me. He's like, it's at the house. I go, well, the pitching lesson's in 5 minutes. Luckily, I got it in my car, motherfucker. Like,
yeah. Or my son will go, "Did I need my glove?" We're going to a baseball lesson. Like,
so
yeah.
Good. Talk about you had a cool experience with the Toronto Blue Jays, Mike. Like, that's I mean, obviously a huge deal and just like a cool experience overall. I'd love to hear some.
Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks of getting to watch and see just how pros move.
Where was you at?
I was in Dunedin, Florida. So it's their minor league complex. They went from worst to first in that complex. It's brand new, state of the art, all kinds of cool things going on. But just getting a peek behind the curtain of how to approach building elite athletes and their processes and their systems, and being the low man on the totem pole was different, right? I'm picking up balls and hitting fungos, doing things like just trying to help out in any way I could. All the while just observing and trying to find
what's
a way to add value.
happening at that facility. Like, what's their main? Is it development of players? Is it develop coaches? Like, what is it?
Good question. So they have it really houses probably like 3 entities, but one is their rookie league team.
Okay.
So it's
is that low A ball?
Yeah, it's low. It's there. If you're on the rung, there's a Dominican Academy.
Okay.
Then there's rookie league. Then there's single A, high A, double A, triple A, big leagues. Right. So it's the ultimate game of attrition. You have to just stick with it. Mainly, I think 19 was the oldest kid on that rookie league team.
Wow. So these are the kids that are just coming out of the draft, basically.
Actually, the majority of these kids are Latin American. I would say 95% were from either DR, Venezuela, Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
2 kids from Canada.
These kids are literally trying to grind for
just going
life,
right,
man.
And it varies. There's guys there with a couple $1 million signing bonuses to people who sign for $10,000, and so you kind of have it all and everything in between. So there's that team that plays. They play 6 days or 5 days a week, and then they have their rehab group. So the rehab group. People are just shuffling, guys get hurt. One guy, it was kind of a funny little quick story. I was with their rehab team, their coaching team, and one guy was throwing a rehab stint. I thought he was young. I thought he was a younger guy because I'm used to being around these 18, 19-year-old kids there. And he gave him a little bit of a scouting report, and the guy was so cool, but he didn't look like much. I mean, he was like 5'9", kind of. Anyways, so he was really calm, and I said, "Man, that's a calm 19-year-old. That's a calm guy." And he goes, "That's so and so. He's been in the big leagues for 4 outings." Because baseball players can be pretty unassuming, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But he was down just doing his rehab stint. He came in, threw his 2 innings in the rookie ball game, was right. Then he went right up to AAA, and then he'll be getting the big leagues here probably pretty soon. But anyway, so you have you have rookie, rehab, and then it also houses all what they call their high performance. So nutritionists, strength and conditioning, trainers, doctors. All that stuff. So there's 3 big parts there. So a lot of times if a guy's struggling, not so much at the big league level, but let's say the high minor league levels, they'll bring them down, put them in their pitching lab where they have all the force plates and all that stuff, see if they can find a flaw here. So anyways, it's a cool place. It's the hub, right? Like people kind of come in and out of there. That's where spring training is, big leagues, all that stuff. So really cool experience to get a look at that.
Is it weird going into, you've been obviously the man at Denison running your own show forever, to walk in and be like on someone else's schedule, low man on the totem pole, and, in a completely unique and uncomfortable environment, but exciting because, you're rolling in the big league organization for 3 weeks, like basically interning.
Without a doubt. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but it's very uncomfortable, right? Like there's being the low man is one thing. That's whatever. But one guy was there that had been in the coaching for 42 years. So he played and coached in the pro ball, and here comes Johnny D3 guy in the door, right? Like Hey, like, show me what you want. You know,
Mikey D3.
And this guy's looking at you like, what are you doing, man? Like more like what, you know, you're going to be here for 3 weeks. We got here in January. It's 6 days a week. So, and it wasn't mean, but they're not going to be overly warm to you, right?
Yeah.
So, just being a little bit having people that are kind of like, what are you doing here? Like, what's going on? Like, what's this all about? Like, from that to, like, you don't get to call any of the shots. I know when we texted, I was like, hey, man, I'd like to give you a call, but I just don't know.
I was trying to call him, and he's like, oh, well, we're doing this at this time, and he's just like on a whole different schedule.
I'm on somebody else's schedule, and I'm never on a schedule here, right? Like maybe a couple times I'm on a schedule. So that was all different, but it's also, I don't know, good centering too, to go back and see that. It also gives you a little priority shift for you too, because you see some things, and not being around my family for 3 weeks is, you know, you start going, man, like I do miss that, because when you're with them every day, they drive me crazy. Yeah. But when you take them away, then you're going, man, I wish I could have some of those moments. So, anyways, just getting the reports of your kids' games from your wife, or things that are going wrong at the house, you know, via text, and you can't do anything about it. But, it was awesome. It was an unbelievable experience, unbelievable people. If there's better people than the Toronto Blue Jays, I'd like to see them, because they're just awesome experience.
Give me one really good growth takeaway.
Good growth takeaway. Man,
something you picked up from one of the other guys, or just the organization in general? Anything that you're going to implement coming home?
There's so many things we're going to implement, but I would say, like, my biggest takeaway, and I hate to be redundant, it's things that we talk about quite a bit, but environment and processes matter so much. I'll give you a quick. I'm talking too much, but I'll give you a quick little thing here. What's amazing to me is, at that level, the game doesn't. What happens in the game, the result of the game doesn't even matter that much. Guys go for 4 with 3 strikeouts. It's not that big of a deal. But what does matter is that they arrived at 7:15, that they did their workout, that they took a really disciplined, intentional batting practice, that they went through their defensive work and reps really intently. They focused in their meetings. They took pride in their film work. Then they just go play. But I think that's the lesson. Like, so parents, coaches, like, we get so wired in, like, did he get a hit today? Did he go 2 for 3? They don't even really give a shit there about the result. It's more, are you approaching life like a pro? And I think the same holds true for us as professionals or whatever. It's like, are you handling your business? Are you controlling those things that you can control day in, day out, day in, day out? And then the results tend to take care of themselves. You know what I mean? So, like, I love hearing about D when he trains, you know, he's training Matt, or they're training together. And that's what it is. Like, whatever happens in the ring is going to happen, but are you making your workouts? Are you eating right? Are you doing those things? And then let the results fall where they may. But it's amazing. Like, those guys, after the game, like, they're not hanging their head very rarely. You know what I mean? It's just like,
they got 150 games.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's the other thing.
We're going to do it again tomorrow.
You get a chance to, because, I mean, what they say, like, if you go 3 for 10 your whole career, you're a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Think about if you're 30% at the plate.
Yeah. And now it's even less, I would say. You look great. I mean, Aaron Judge is hitting 259, and he's the best player in the game right now. He's got 33 home runs. But anyways, it's
so think about
amazing.
that. Think about if 30% of the time you did good on the mat.
Yeah. I mean, I would have to say that baseball has to be unique in that way, because there's so many games.
So many reps.
You know what I mean?
But
using Matt as the counterexample, he might fight twice a year.
Yeah. So he can't be good 30%.
No.
He's only got 2 at-bats.
Yeah. But they said the same, like the same thing holds true. They say, like, sometimes people talk about those processes and they think it's soft, but it's not. Like they were talking about, like, elite special forces people, 2 people that are going into battle. Like, you can't worry, like, am I going to come out of this alive? Like, you have to just worry.
You have to trust your training, trust the process.
Trust your because you go crazy if not, right? Like, if I hang on to every at bat, or if I hang in, you would explode. You could never, going back to the first thing we talked about, like, play free and easy, and we know that's when we're at our best typically, right? So, but if you cheat that process, that's where the nerves come in.
I think the nerves, and I think it shows up in competition. I think at the end of the day, when you can just be a reactionary athlete, like when I watch Reese Humphreys, like those when he first started working with us, his takedowns and his, like, scrambles, like, he ain't thinking about that.
No,
he's just doing
moving.
it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's the same thing in the batter's box. Like, that's why I always said, like, AG is a way better pitcher because he's in control.
Yeah.
When you put him in a reactionary mode, his brain doesn't work the same way. So he would struggle in the field in the box, but you put him on the mound in these heavy situations and he's fine.
Yep.
He doesn't even look rattled at all, where most people maybe are the opposite way. So I think when you can train and you're consistent to be that reactionary, can just be your actual athletic talent, that's where you ultimately win, which is during the process.
Yeah.
I had a cool experience while you were gone too, and I was telling these guys, like, I went down and shadowed Alan Burr from the Indianapolis Indians, which is the Pirates AAA team. They were in town. He's followed West Side for years, buys Max Effer, has been around like the content. And he was like, yo, I'll leave you some tickets or whatever if you want them in town. I've been paying attention to your stuff for a while. And he goes, I said, hey, man, I think I'm trying to like come down and intern for like a few hours. And he was like, hell yeah. So went down, and here's what I was super impressed by. First off, they got 17 arms in AAA for the Pirates, right? They're working out in a hallway because they're on the road. So the amount of like stuff he brought with him, some was there, and like the amount of like creativity, I think I underestimated that, especially at the AAA level, because they're not in the bigs yet, right? Yeah. And there's guys in and down. We just got these two guys from Cleveland yesterday in a trade. These guys, I mean, this guy's 19, this guy's 30. I mean, it was like, and he had to carry literally a spreadsheet with him that said these 4 guys have to do conditioning because they haven't pitched in 3 days. These 7 guys have to do weight lift. I was like really impressed with the amount of like structure that I am not built that way. But I mean, I was like, he was like, if I didn't have this, it's color coordinated because the guys are, once again, 150 games, all different ages, all different stuff. He said at that level, most guys know what their warm-ups need to be and all that kind of stuff. But it's like some guys, because there's 17 arms, some guys ain't pitching a week. Yeah. It was eye-opening on how they're still bootstrapping. And once again, some guys are making $2 million, some guys are making $2,000. And then the room and the situational, like what organization, who's above you, when you get called up, like these guys are on the edge. It was really in the schedule. I mean, the schedule that these guys keep and that level of like a strength coach, it was just a really great experience. And I got a chance to really chop it up with some of the guys. And I'll tell you one in particular, this guy named Austin Bryce. He's a pitcher. He's already been taking max effort, so he's kind of aware of what's going on. And he's running some sprints or whatever, and he's on the conditioning day, and he's kind of asking me some questions and stuff. And then he looks at me, goes, I see what you're doing today with this outfit. I go, okay, what's up? He goes, you got the lifting flats on, because I know you're like a real lifter. He goes, got the athleisure gear, because I had basically the same outfit on. He goes, and then you got the big dong on the wrist. And that's so he's laughing because I forget baseball guys are so into jewelry. Yeah. So they all, especially the guys that have been around, were like, roll, like they got it. I didn't even realize because that's what I rock anyway. But it was funny. He was like, you're like telling us you're successful without telling us, but not in a shitty way. Yeah. And it was like, it was funny because then multiple guys were coming over and asking about what part of the business I was in, basically what was going on. Because I was just telling them I was interning for the day, right? But they knew that there was something else going on, right? Besides the something. So that was really interesting because I felt like I got a chance to impact a couple guys on accident, but also got to respect what their grind was, what this guy's grind was. And so I got an interesting kind of look too, which was really cool experience.
Did you feel one of my big takeaways? So like I mentioned all those levels. So AAA, you're on the cusp. The way they have to walk and move, like the players, like you have to have a burning confidence in you. Yeah, that's different than everybody else. And there's did you notice that at all? Like they have to be. I found myself. This sounds funny, but I found myself walking a little slower, trying to walk my shoulders back a little bit more. Yeah, because athletes are sensed to like smell weakness, like or something's off. So you have to like carry yourself in a certain way, and they all carry themselves like that. I don't want to say it's posturing, but like the draft just occurred, so 25 or whatever, 20 new players are coming into your organization right now. So 20 got to go. But if you're looking over your shoulder all the time, like, am I going to get cut, or how are they think? What do they think about me? You're never going to last. That's why you see that supreme confidence. I don't know if you noticed.
So I think that's I like that, and Dustin could speak to this. Like when you're around athletes that are as good as all the Ohio State guys, the USA guys, Matt, some of the guys that come through here. it didn't feel that unnatural because I think that's what our environment kind of looks like anyway. Like we know Matt's tough, but you can feel that Matt's tough.
Right.
But same with Colin, right? Like you can feel like the confidence. So yes, the room was like that, but it doesn't feel that abnormal because that's how our gym is.
And I think when people aren't used to being in an environment like that, let's say if you normally coach and train somewhere else where you're not around any type of elite lifters, elite athletes or whatever, I think most, guys or coaches, athletes, whatever, when they walk into an environment like that, they're not used to it. It's really intimidating. Or they feel like they have to try to puff their chest up and then they're not acting natural. Whereas you could just go in and be yourself because it's no big deal.
Yeah, so then when those conversations came around to me, they felt real natural because they knew I wasn't like, I was actually downplaying why I was there. You know what I mean? Because I honestly really just wanted to see what it was about.
Yeah.
Because I always thought like, oh, it'd be cool to do that. And then I was like, man, this schedule, my respect for that guy went up to 1,000,000 because I was like, man, what he's managing is really impressive. But did you, maybe in the college environment, I don't know, it might not be, maybe with your guys, maybe it doesn't feel like that all the time. I don't know, like that confidence.
No. It's different. It's definitely different, and I think it's like I said. I think it's a product of having 150 players in the system. You're 25. You're going to the big leagues, right?
Yeah.
So you have to. I don't know. You're kind of always kind of measuring up against how others are, and on the back end, that organization, that discipline you saw from him. What's amazing to me, because I was on a few of these calls. They'll have player calls probably. They'll do like 3 guys maybe a day or something, and they've got to break it down. They'll say, okay, how's Corey doing with his training, conditioning, and lifting? And then you got to break it down to him. These are their front office, whatever. How's he doing on his diet?
Yeah.
How are you doing? So that's why you see that. One is just that guy's probably a thorough person, but 2, he's got to be able to talk to his bosses about so-and-so's training. I mean, it is amazing.
They're assets.
They're assets.
They're paying for assets.
And what's amazing now, like this high-performance stuff, they can predict when a guy's breaking down a little bit. Like they do some assessments, and if strength's off or their vertical jumps off or whatever, they may start looking and going, all right, something's wrong. He's a little tired. If we're not careful, this big asset could go down, and we don't want that. So anyways, it's amazing how complex all that is at that level.
I would say the other thing I noticed was, the way I'm able to train guys that don't have to go do a sport, even the high school kids, because they're on the younger side, right? I can push a little bit more because they can recover faster. But it's like these guys, like I don't even know if like it would be such a small window that what I'm really good at, which I think is motivation and pushing people, is even like can happen. These guys really can't be pushed that hard because they're playing so much.
Not in the season.
But their season's 9 months a year, 10 months. I mean, it's like they literally will maybe have 2 months off. So like the feedback I got from a couple of the guys that did the off-season stuff for that 8-week window, like Tanner Tully, who just got called up to the Guardians, which is awesome. But it's like they have such a small window to increase actual absolute strength. It's like it's actually very, very tricky. And so yeah, I was like, man, I don't even think I would be great at this because this is not where I'm great at. I don't think. I think I'm better at that stuff, to be honest. So that was actually kind of an interesting kind of vibe. Like I'm thinking like I don't think I would be as happy trying to manage that.
Yeah.
It's not as fun.
Yeah, training athletes in season is definitely way different.
Yeah.
You can really pile the volume on your guys. Really push them to improve. And I know a lot of them, might still work like a blue collar job where but even that, even if they're working and being physical all day, there's no competition aspect to it.
Nope.
I've had, coaches talk to me before about like my in-season workouts, and they're like, well, these workouts aren't long enough, or you're not doing enough, or our guys are shrinking. I'm like, look, in season, they're doing a warm up. They might pull heavy or, do basically one main movement, then 1 or 2 accessories and some sled work, and they're done in like 45 minutes. We can't really do much more than that with them. They got practice. They got to compete in 2 days. They got to make weight. So it's really it's really tricky to say like, all right, how are we going to, manage their training and hopefully maintain their strength, let alone, making gains is almost out of the question at that point.
Do you have a percentage, D, that you think like, so I know the vertical leap's one of them, especially in baseball, that they track. So like if AG jumped to 33, if in season he's all of a sudden jumping to 28, he needs more rest, he needs whatever. Like what I'm trying to figure out is I saw the difference in his velo, especially his velocity. Like he's back to front squat and 315 again during season. He's having a hard time at 275, like because they really weren't training. So like I know next season he has to be doing something different. Yep. But is it, you know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out like where is that? Should that be 80%? Like I wonder what I should. I don't know the answer. I'm trying to figure out what I should be trying to shoot for during the season. Do you have any kind of concept like that of what you do with your guys?
Yeah, I mean,
or what's your expectation?
Right. I mean, I know, down in Ohio State, they use force plates and all kinds of shit in season or whatever. But
I'm talking about motherfucking front squat.
Yeah. I'm talking about real fucking coaches that can do the eye test. No, so what I kind of look at is like, all right, I'm just going to make up something. Let's say I got a kid that in the summertime when he's grinding, he's pulling like, maybe his max on the deadlift is 365 and he's normally like a 315 for triples on any given day. I look at in season, can he still pull 315 for one and make it look good? Even if he could maybe pull a heavier single than that, but I don't want him to grind it out.
No.
You know what I mean? So I look at like, all right, normally, like, so if that 315 is, I don't know what the percentage is, 80, 85% or whatever, can they still go to that where it's a decent weight? They can still pull it fast for one. That's kind of what I'm looking at. And I really do the eye test like on the early sets. Yeah, so even that same kid on 225, if 225 looks bad, I know he shouldn't pull anything heavy that day.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the eye test I think is important. That's really where the experience as a coach and knowing your athletes comes in. You know, you can't just really plug and play any program with any coach, with any kid. It just don't work that way.
Yeah, no. It's I'm trying to figure out kind of my own methodology for certain lifts to apply of what I'm seeing.
Yeah,
because,
so maybe for AG, you said his 275 front squat is his.
Well, yeah, no, he just did he can do 315, but he wasn't. I didn't want to push him to that, but also he looked like he had no business being under that.
Right.
Because I could tell he was beat down a little bit.
If you look at, in the off season, if he's a 315 plus front squat guy, maybe in season it's 250 to 275, but he's coming crisp.
Fast.
It's fast.
Yeah.
And then, he could probably still pull, or squat 315, but it might not look great, but you don't really even need him to go there.
Yeah.
You just need him to be able to do a clean 275 with some velocity on the bar.
Yeah, I need to figure out that with the band stuff.
Let me ask something very basic, because in-season training is always tough time-wise, especially baseball is such a long sport. But the guy really quickly said this to me, and I didn't, and you guys can maybe just put some clarity on it. So it's a very elementary question, but he goes, if you can push, pull, carry, and crawl, like that's a pretty good, like that's a good, like even if it's like 20 minutes, like just to get something. So what's he referring to there? He's a
GPP basically.
Yeah. So pushing, he's either talking about pressing movements or he's talking about pushing a sled. Yeah. You're pulling, he's talking about dragging, deadlifting, whatever. What was it?
Push, pull, carry.
So some type of farmers carries, med ball carries, overhead carries. Crawl, I know a lot of the strength coaches are getting really into the crawl and stuff.
Yeah, shit.
That's not your thing?
I think that there's probably a place for it, but I wouldn't put an emphasis on that over static holds like plank positions, things like that.
Yeah.
So when I was we were talking about training the kids, like the younger kids, which we got to get Joey in soon, is that was the big thing I was like focused on early, and Dustin was too, like basically, pull-ups, carry, drag, climb the rope, that's basically like all like just like overall conditioning stuff to where they can literally apply it to everything.
So you can move a little bit better first, you
just like if you're proficient at a pull-up, climbing the rope, dragging a sled, doing body weight movements, you really that's like the baseline for everything. If you think about gymnastics, like most gymnasts are like literally amazing athletes for the most part at anything they try because their base level is so good. So
cool.
I don't know.
Well, and I think, one of the keys is that we've seen with Andon and with Jack, they've been doing all that GPP stuff for so long. And even I would even put like those kettlebell deadlifts I had him going, I'd put that in his GPP because really picking something off the floor is really a basic human skill.
Yeah.
But when you attach a barbell to it, it's a lot harder. There's a lot more skill involved in the movement. But we had him doing, even Andon, he was doing the 106-pound kettlebell. I got to where he could do 15 reps with it easily. Yeah. But now we've transitioned them to where they're using a barbell. But we didn't start out with the barbell. They had to be able to pick that up off the floor so many times for months and months or maybe even years now. I don't know how long we've been doing it, but we built such a good base with them. Now they're looking like weightlifters.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. I think we should go to this part of the show. It's called Treadway. Ask a question so we get involved. Treadway.
Sorry, Treadway.
Treadway.
We've been asking a bunch of dad stuff.
Yeah. Throw it to you, Treadway.
So, like when you went to, work with the Blue Jays, and you have this perception of what you're doing at Denison, and you have this perception that it's professional, whatever. And I'm sure these are things that you've developed over the years. But what was the one thing that you think is is missing, or what was the one thing that you're like, why didn't I think of that sooner to do with the guys?
A lot of the tech stuff, a lot of the technology. I've been a little resistant to it for some reason.
You old motherfucker.
Yeah. But there's it just helps your coaching. I heard Dustin said it really quickly with the force, like you can see with my eyes. Well, and that is true. Like there's an old school. You can, you watch enough baseball, you watch enough basketball, you tell a guy shoots or hits or whatever. But the data it just streamlines things so fast.
And
right?
they're on the top end of, they got everything.
They got
probably.
everything. And that was really fun for me, right? And then, I worked a lot with their guy who runs their hitting lab and pitching lab, and I would just say, all right, like, so here's what I got. I got X amount of money.
Yeah.
Like, bang for my buck, what should we be doing, And so, like, those kind of things, you're just trying to become, like the technology makes your coaching a lot more accurate. We can sit there and still go with our eyes on things, but if it says if like someone's like, hey, that slider was pretty good, and the data just says that slider sucked, it's
the spin rate wasn't there.
It's not good. It's just not like you can this doesn't play consistently. Then you can start trying to work and tinker, rather than waste a day, a week, 2 weeks going down this path. So the technology piece I thought was really cool, and once again they say something about tech that I really like. Is that data starts the conversation there? It doesn't end the conversation. You know what I mean? Like, because we're still human beings, but that is a good place to start. Whether, hey, his vertical jump's way down, like, because it could just be something like he's not sleeping.
Yeah,
he had prom, whatever. Like there could be but it could be that there's something off, right?
Yep.
So. I think probably not being as resistant to tech and data, and if our players are listening, they're probably laughing because I threw away a bunch of technology stuff last year. But you can also my last thing about this is, you can, like, players can and coaches can. Data can make you like just sit there and watch, because you can just kind of watch this thing go, oh, that's a good number, that's a good, and you can lose human interaction. So I think that's the bugaboo with it, but. Yeah, you got to lean into tech. It's not going away.
Mickey Mantle didn't use that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you watched the All-Star game last night, guys are throwing they're all throwing like 98 to 100 miles an hour. It's not your grandfather's game anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like these guys were trained up physical machines, right? And if you're not,
the kid from Tennessee's throwing 104. Shit's different.
Yeah. So it's just a different game. So you got to lean into that tech, and I think just also the training. It's like the mechanics are one thing. I've told Dustin this too. I said, like, to me, if you have a young athlete, like your investment should be in making them better movers and making them stronger. Like mechanical X's. I don't know, if you're stronger, you're faster, you're more flexible, you're gonna have a chance in any sport. So
I'm about to hopefully see that with Andon this football season. See, like, the actual, because baseball I kind of saw it a little bit, but he the stuff isn't as
can't
natural.
really showcase it as much.
Well,
in
maybe
baseball.
at the plate, but he isn't as smooth at baseball. Like, it's not as natural.
Yeah.
This one we'll be able to see, like, as he's pulling kids down, the way he's running, he's moving. Like, it'll be interesting to see, like, because now it's been like probably like a year, right, D?
We've been training for a while, yeah.
It's getting close.
Even like young high school kids, like when we have our prospect camp, like 90% of the evaluations I write are more functional strength.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, just if they just get stronger, I mean, you could probably say the same thing in soccer or whatever. Like, if they just get stronger, a lot of things clean up mechanically. Like, they're a little awkward. Like, it's hard to keep balance. It's hard to do like very basic stuff if you're not strong. So yeah, I think strength is a very good investment for people.
Yeah.
There's my max effort plug, by the way.
Yeah, no, like everything you said was good. But so when you're thinking about all this tech, like obviously it's a difference between programs. Like, you're looking at what the professionals are doing, and then you're seeing like what you are able to do at Denison at the Division III level. So like, how do you translate that to your kids? Like, other than just saying, hey, I went and worked with the Blue Jays, how do you get them to buy into it? Because I'm sure everybody at the Blue Jays organization has seen it, and they've seen the results that have come from it. Mm-hmm. So how do you get your guys to kind of buy into what you've learned?
I think, well, one, I won't talk about it like that. I won't say, well, here's what I learned at the Blue Jays. Right. I won't do that. You just kind of look, I think one thing I've learned about athletes, if it doesn't matter if you played the sport at a high level or not, if you can make somebody better, like, they're all in. Like, especially high-level athletes, if they're always looking for an edge. Like, they know that it's a competitive world. We just talked about this at length. Like, so if someone can give them an edge, and they'll take it, right? So that's the first thing I would say is like this stuff helps them win or helps them be better. They're going to be bought in. And then the second thing is I think kids now are just from the video games, they love technology. Like they very rarely they abrasive to it. And we're not going to sit there and go, just make it. We're not going to do like this full 100% change. It's more, hey, here's some of the numbers we're seeing. Once again, it's a conversation starter. Like how can we make this better, right? If you want to get drafted, like this is what it'll take, right? Or whatever. It just, these are like factual things. Like you can't get drafted at 80 miles an hour. You can't. Like, you know what I mean? Right. So here's what it might take to get there. And then here's a pathway that we can help deliver it. So I don't think we're not going to like shove it down their throat. And it's amazing. Kids come now, like the facilities they work out, there's always a little bit of tech, little data. So they're pretty versed in it already, I would say.
Yeah, so you just start to implement it and then let the results kind of guide them the rest of the way.
That's it. And my last thing about that is it's always a relationship business. It's always caring about the individual. And once they know that, then they're going to be receptive to this. Like this is we know them as humans, right? So, and then this is a way we can help you. I'm all in, right? That's usually the way I've seen high-level athletes work anyways.
Dustin, you brought this up the other day when I was talking about working with them, about like guys that are already working at such a high level, and then you're trying to, like you said, they're trying to get an edge, and it's going to be maybe like incremental, that challenge you said, but sometimes you had that early on. Maybe talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so I was kind of using it in reference to like when I went from training like average high school kids, which now I train a lot of elite high school kids, but at the time, I would say they're pretty average high school wrestlers, to now I'm training, world team members, All-Americans, Olympians. And, it's really, I would say it's really easy to take a kid that's on JV and get him to varsity.
Yeah.
It's really hard to take a kid who's maybe a 3-time All-American and make him become an NCAA champ, because the room for improvement at that point is so slim. And you got to figure at that point too, from a strength conditioning standpoint, they've probably already are very close to their genetic potential from a speed standpoint, from a strength standpoint. So it becomes really a challenge to say, all right, how can I, help this person improve that much? And, the example you were using with your baseball player is maybe some of the things that you could help them improve on. Those were some of the things like that from a strength or conditioning standpoint, we talked about mobility and stuff, might actually be helping them be elite, whereas it might be like kind of a negative, to kind of change those things. So it can get really tricky because, again, you're operating within – anytime you have an elite athlete, you're operating within the, kind of framework of their practice schedule, their competition schedule. These baseball players essentially play year round. Even a lot of my wrestlers now that are elite, they just had Fargo this past weekend. They're competing all over the place. So it becomes a challenge, like I say, because you don't get a blank slate and say, okay, I'm just going to spend the next 12 weeks fixing this on them, and this is in a vacuum, and that's all they have to deal with. That just ain't going to happen.
Well, how do you handle it? Do you? And I think I know you went off to hear your answer, but I'd like to hear you break this down. Is there a certain level of pressure with that? Because they are close to their genetic ceiling, and they may take a step back at some point with this, like a quick step back.
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, there is pressure because if you are working with these elite athletes and you think you know the answer, and let's say you implement it and it makes them worse, or they get dinged up, or something, like your job can be on the line, or that athlete's just not going to trust you anymore.
That trust piece is big, right?
I think the communication, that's what I'm going through. So, like, AG was throwing 72. Now he's throwing 80 to 82, right? So he literally goes from JV to varsity. Nemec's throwing 88, 85 to 88, tight as a board. But is part of why he's so good on the mound because he's working off, like Joey Galloway's a great example. Joey Galloway hardly ever stretched. He could barely touch his damn knees because he said it would take him 315 just to get in a full squat, but he's still running a 4.4. So it's like there to the point. So, but the communication was, hey, I know like you should be moving better. What point that is at, we have to communicate on the performance. So what I heard was the ball's coming out of my hand easier at roughly the same speed. But then the other day, he thought it was down. But I said, what's your body weight? I realized we're burning a lot more calories than we were burning before. We weren't training at all. Weren't even stretching. He was down 7 pounds.
There you go.
And I said, dude, you're not eating enough. So then they created that. But it's like, I think that constant communication will allow it to then increase. Because I'm like, there's no way if the body's movement doesn't incrementally get better, that we can keep some of the stuff that's already been great about the kid, but then, I don't think he's at his genetic potential yet. I think his genetic potential was kind of hindered because he hadn't really done any of this stuff before, which is why I was so excited, but he can't be throwing 79 now. You know what I mean?
That's right. No.
And so that is a pressure, and I'm not his main coach. I mean, I'm helping him out, but like, I'm excited to say what's possible, but I don't want to deter from it. So it's really been a good challenge for me because I've always been on the other side, mostly working with kids that are trying to go up a level, not already here, to in person at least,
And that's where I think the little bit of, like, now as coaches, we have to, when you're dealing with the 1%, you have to match their confidence in what you know and what you're doing, right? Because they can feel it. Like if you start panicking when a guy digresses a little bit, if you panic, then they'll panic with you, right? Like, but if it's part of the plan, part of the process, then we're all right. Because you're trying to put this thing, you're trying to put a puzzle together, right?
You're going to face his ass too, Mike, in a couple of years.
We'll be all right.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, no,
but but that's the thing is, like, I'm looking at, like, all right, 3 to 5 mile an hour difference, if it's possible, as the kid matures, is wildly different.
Without a doubt. And
in game changing. And I've seen him throw hard since he was 10 years old. So I know you can't teach it, right? But it's like, then you see the movement patterns and you're like, gosh, but then, so anyway, it's I think this is probably one of my more exciting challenges. But when I do say, hey, let's do this, or hey, you need to weigh 205, bro, at a better quality, like, you're not eating it, like, I'm confident when I'm doing the coaching. That's, I think, part of it. And I think the communication of, like, a lot of that. So he just had an outing last night, so I'll see, like, how he did. But it's like that was like, this has been a little bit more difficult than I expected. He was further away, and he's come already so much further this way. But then, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's fun. And my, off of that is, you mentioned sometimes, we think we got it all lined up, but the nutrition could be off, right?
Yes.
Or so, like, you're beating your head off the wall, like, why is this not clicking? Then, oh, you wait a minute. We'll talk to our guys. We'll say, like, what'd you have for breakfast? We're like, oh, I didn't eat. Like, I got up right before class. Yeah. Like, and then they're like, well, it was finals a week. We didn't sleep. So, but why are my numbers down in the weight room? Why is my velocity down? Whatever. Well, you're not eating. You're not sleeping.
You're managing, like, still young adults that aren't really taking care of stuff.
And they'll think it's because, you squatted for whatever. They'll go there or something, right? But it's like, no, man, you're not getting the calories. Like, if you just get calories and sleep, that's going to help you too. But it's it's a little bit of putting this puzzle together and keeping your confidence when you're dealing with high level guys and assuring them that, hey, you're going to be all right. Like, we're going to get this figured out. But it's a fun challenge for sure.
It is a fun challenge. You guys good? That was a pretty good episode. It was good. Hey, glad to be back on the mics.
That's it, baby.
All right, Coach's Clinic Podcast brought to you by MaxEverMuscle.com. Your boy Corey G, Mike Deegan, Tyler Treadway, Dustin Myers. We're out.